Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you feeling nerves?
Um,
I am.
I'm not actually. I feel like because we've been doing a lot of this over the last few weeks, you and I, for work, I definitely have become more accustomed to StreamYard. So I'm
Yes, but now I know everyone. There are 3 people out
thousands of people.
there. There are 3 or 4 people watching us right now. So, why are we here?
Uh, well, first and foremost, to announce the launch of our baby, our very first online learning experience, the seed that we have literal. I didn't want to say blood yesterday, but sweat, tears, loss of sleep, um, time, you name it, into. So introducing the world to that, um, but also taking a moment to ground in the reality of the state of the world right now and do a little check-in.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm nervous about both of those.
I am too.
Yeah, things have been tumultuous. There's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot going on. It's hard to find our footing in the midst of everything that's going on. And in the midst of the social climate, in the midst of what we're seeing online, in the midst of the amount of work that we have, in the midst of especially because in the midst of all of that, we so care about doing this open-heartedly. So it feels like everything's taking a lot of energy, a lot of uh, heart space, a lot of head space. I'm just like thinking about it, feeling into it, dreaming about it.
I'm definitely not dreaming about it, but I know my partner is.
Yeah.
So checking in with our check-in of the moment right now, which is the emotional cocktail that you are entering the day with this conversation. You said some of it just now.
Yeah. And an invitation to anyone who's watching to kind of just take a moment and sink into your own body and sink into your own present and feel into what your emotional cocktail um, looks like as well. Some people interpret this question as like choosing a drink of choice that represents what they're feeling. The intention is to essentially allow us to answer the question, "How are you?" without needing to say one word.
Just go.
Okay.
This
Okay.
isn't session.
All right. So emotional cocktail includes um, I'm up here. I'm not down here. I'm sweaty. That's not an emotion.
Some sweat in the cocktail.
Um, I am I am deeply feeling a lot of collective pain and desperation and concern. And I'm also um, feeling a sense of um, connection to the collective. I'm feeling a sense of support. And I am vulnerable and nervous and excited about releasing the seed into the world because, like I said, we just care so much.
Mm.
Where are you at?
I feel like that's a pretty good capture of where I'm at as well. I think I'm definitely less up here, learning to be more in here and feel more comfortable being in here because I have never been more comfortable being in here. in here being in my body and less in my mind. And I feel like that has helped. I'm feeling throwing in some hope. I know that sounds crazy in the midst of all of this, but I feel like I'm surrounded by people and belong in spaces that are doing such amazing things, and that despite everything are continuing to show up with such courage and grace and compassion and solidarity. And so that's refueling me. Definitely feeling a little bit of nerves. And pride.
Oh,
Yeah, pride, because I think we did an amazing job. And the feedback that we've been receiving, that I've been receiving, has been wonderful thus far for the folks who helped with the piloting of this program.
that's nice.
What
What is our next guiding question for this live?
What have we been up to? We haven't been on live in a while. We haven't been active on social media in a while.
Not from the business standpoint, no.
No. We posted on Instagram saying and being really honest about how sometimes we just don't know how to show up on social media anymore, especially as a business. And that, we kind of view this work as being seasonal. Sometimes the work is happening behind the scenes. Sometimes it's on the stage. Sometimes it's in the shadows and the light.
Marcus is here.
Marcus who? Oh, Marcus. Hi.
Marcus. Can you see the comments on your end?
I know. I never know to click on that. So yeah, what have we been up to?
Yeah. Well, a lot. We've been up to a lot. And just to reiterate the point of just how overwhelming and exhausting social media has felt. I mean, even like the notion of receiving messages on LinkedIn or answering to messages or like posting things to Instagram and
People watching right now being like, this girl never responded.
I know. And if I didn't respond to you, it is really not personal. It is an overwhelming sense of anxiety at just engaging online and just how disconnected I feel from the screen. Hi, Linda. It's nice to see you in here. So what have we been up to? I mean, we've had ongoing multiple longer term client engagements in which we're guiding them through culture strategy work, through more inclusive, more equitable practices. So a lot of deep conversations with teams, a lot of creative visioning, mediating and facilitating dialogue with people, helping people to ask important questions. Meanwhile, we also have had the ambition, at the beginning of the year to launch our first online program in order for us to speak to more folks, to grow community, to be able to have more impact, to make our offerings and the conversations we're having more accessible. And we told ourselves in February that we were going to do this by the end of the year. And essentially, the seed is the manifestation of that promise to ourselves, which we took a full 6 months to build. Really, some of the most intense work months that I've definitely ever lived. We really poured ourselves into it and could not have done it alone because we're working with some really thoughtful facilitators, with 2 incredible project managers, helping us to maintain balance with our client work, with the project management, and create a little bit of space for life to happen, for healing to happen, for rest to happen, for care of each other and our families and friends.
We also took 4 weeks off during the summer, which we had also planned and anticipated
Yeah.
do and didn't know if it would actually be possible to do. But I think it was important for us to hold that promise to ourselves and explore what it would be like to disconnect and what could emerge from actually having a summer break, which had personally been my first like full month summer break since high school, I think, because I've always been working.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so that our summer was we had a slow summer, which was wonderful. And
Oh, speak for yourself.
right, you had
It was extremely overloaded.
I forget about your summer. It was slow for me. It was slow for me, but overloaded for Erin. But we weren't working all summer. Hence why when we started back in the fall, um, yeah, we hit the road running.
Yeah. But honestly, what is work? Because I like I know that a lot of what we poured into the seed is connected to what's happening on the back end for us whenever we're, in community having conversations. Like, does the work ever end? It definitely, um, you know, the deeper we dive into ourselves, the deeper we can dive into the work that we're doing. So I think it was percolating the whole time. We also, I want to mention, because it was just such an incredible moment that we've been up to, and we haven't been able to mention it on LinkedIn, but we were able to go to the subarctic, to Shefferville, to Cohort, where I grew up, and Danny got to experience that land and got to meet some of the members of the Nisgapi community who I grew up with. And we happened to be working with the director of Nisgapi curriculum up there. And so we were able to experience and see some of the impact of our work, doing work with her. And that was, woof,
That was beautiful.
it was incredible.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
We had a full year. This is like our year. I don't know that we will be live again, obviously.
No. We're not. This is not our year end.
But what a year. What a year.
Yeah.
What a year in terms of also how EDI has shifted and the work around ideas has shifted, the conversation around ideas has shifted. A year ago, we were in a very different place socially. Um, and, a year later, because of the state of the world right now and the increasing polarization, the increasing othering, it's becoming harder and harder to hold these spaces and have these conversations. And I want to acknowledge our peers who are having a hard time right now, and who are um, losing contracts and jobs and opportunities for their stances and being vocal. And I want to name that we're very privileged to be able to continue to do this work, um, and not be impacted by, at least economically, by the state of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Going back to your piece about how EDI has shifted, I think connected to how we view the seed, this program that we've built. When we talk about engaging in ideas work with people, ideas being inclusion, diversity, equity, access, and social impact, what we're trying to guide people towards is the understanding that fundamentally we're moving through ideas to get to a place of belonging. We're very inspired and driven by the notion of building cultures of belonging. Connected to that is also the notion of what happens when people feel like they belong. So the exploration of social innovation and the let me think about how to say this. Like,
Mm.
it's not, you know, it's not really concept learning. It's not at all concept learning. It's about a deep embodiment of the experience of learning new things, bridging gaps, opening your perspective, creating safety, uh, being seen, seeing others, doing
You're
a very.
that as in that being the foundation of belonging, or
I'm thinking
just
about like just the expansion of the notion of we do ideas work, let's
okay,
say.
I understand.
Do like culture building work. There's just like so much depth to that, which I know is going to make like people who do this are going to be like, yeah, obviously. But what I feel we are moving through right now is really um, a very concrete example of the reality of what it means to engage in collective change, in social change, and how exactly what you're saying, how polarizing that is, how difficult it is, how um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think also this is a perfect case in point of the importance of understanding systems. And you know, there was a tweet the other day that said, once you understand how systems work, when we use certain terms and ideas like capitalism, patriarchy, white supremacy, all these like these big heavy terms that define the systems that we live under. It really does, for me anyway, having that language and that knowledge help provide a lens through which to view the world.
Thank you for bringing us back.
Um, and yeah, and in some ways, as exhausting and like, frustrating as it is to feel powerless um, in the face of these systems, as much as having that language and having that knowledge helps me feel supported in the midst of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
It makes complete sense. And yeah, I like, once you start understanding the systems at play, once you start seeing them at play and start naming it, then you start seeing them everywhere. It's like, oh, there's remnants of colonialism. There's like values of white supremacy. There's capitalism in the way that it shapes our workplace, our relationships with our bodies, our relationships with what we value. And what I've found over the last few weeks is that what I'm realizing, this is like naive, but like I talk about those things quite you know
Theoretically,
theoretically, maybe openly, easily. And what I'm realizing is there's really a need to create a bridge even around the conversations of the language itself, because the language can be so polarizing, divisive, can stir up so much fear. And yeah, so so the notion of belonging, social innovation, systems thinking, um, putting language to understanding what's at play, bridging spaces between people, like all these things that we're kind of circling around, me in a more vague way than you. Um, all of this all of these things inspired us and inspired this program of the seed. Should we
yeah.
transition into talking about the seed?
I feel like we've been tickling at it, yes. Maybe preface by saying that we held back the launch for a while.
I was thinking that I was like trying to this morning. I was like, when did we originally set the date for the launch? I think it was October 13th.
Yeah, it's been about a month of pushing back and holding back week by week, and obviously being mindful of pushing yet another course into the world
Yeah.
amidst these conversations, amidst the chaos. Um, and yet, we genuinely feel like many people, I think we've been seeing a lot of people who have been hesitant to release things and share their work and talk about what they're doing. And yet we still feel like this program can genuinely support folks in moving through these times, can genuinely provide teams with um, guidance and structure, can provide participants with the tools and the resources to feel held and supported during um, tumultuous times. So ultimately, we still feel good about launching it now. We didn't feel good about a month ago, but I think now I feel confident, especially after having the pilot. We had a pilot programming with about 10 folks uh,
Mhm.
working in community last week, which was very helpful for us to have their eye, to have their insight, their feedback. So, what is the seed?
Yeah, that's exactly the question I was going to ask. What is the seed? The seed is a 5-week long interactive learning experience that allows for learners to engage in the concepts and in the conversations and in the self-reflection and in the creative brainstorming that's connected to concepts of ideas, and that will drive them to a place where they can better engage in building cultures of belonging, and actively engage in building cultures of belonging in a smaller scale. So in their immediate circles, in their communities, in their families, on a personal level, but also on an organizational scale as well. So thinking about how you show up to your teams, and how you create space for conversations to happen, but also new ways of being to take root. Um, we talk about it being interactive because we have designed it to support learners who, learn in different ways, would prefer to engage in different ways. It's a 5-week, 5-module program, and each module has a pre-read, a video to watch, workbook, a self-directed workbook to move through, a facilitated hour with us and with some exceptional facilitators that we've brought on. And we also have a community conversation space, which we call the garden, where people can deepen their understanding and dialogue, and further explore some of the concepts, further embody some of the concepts that we're talking about throughout the program.
Mhm. Mm. We named it the seed because
We're so attuned. I was like, gonna say that. Why call the seed?
because I think that there's many different reasons, but one, I think for me, um, doing this work has been a process of detachment from the outcome, a realization that all Erin and I can do at any given time is plant seeds for us, help people plant seeds. All we can do is hope that in the session with us, through a learning experience with us, people take away something. It could be just one thing that we have said that helps them further engage in this work. And it sometimes doesn't happen in session, and sometimes won't happen even after a session. Sometimes these things take time to germinate and bloom. Um, I think there's also the idea of the maturity and the ever evolving process that this work is. So some of us start as seeds, some of us are already growing, thriving plants, and some might be, trees and ancestors that we learn from because they're so deeply grounded in these concepts. But trusting that there is space for all of us to enter these conversations, and not only is there space, but there's there's a need, a fundamental kind of critical human need at this point for all of us to get aligned on um, not only understanding the past and reckoning with the past and understanding how the past has influenced every single part of how we collectively live and work and relate today, but also a need for all of us to collectively um, begin to reimagine new systems and new ways.
And to understand, like to start seeing the systems at play, to understand how they shape our day-to-day lives, regardless of who we are. The big systems being capitalism, patriarchy, white supremacy, how they show up societally, how they show up in our workplaces, even when we're consciously working against them, even when we're consciously attempting to dismantle them. Sorry, you're on a beautiful flow. Please keep going.
No, that's it. I think of Rupa Maria's work though, because she's good at like, she frames supremacy, not even necessarily like whites, just supremacy in general. Um, and colonialism as essentially being kind of the mother project of all of these systems. And I know that right now this is a heavy, heavy word for folks. It's a heavy conversation to have. I mean, when is it not really right now? When is it not? But again, curating this work and putting together all of the resources and scholars and research that has shaped our understanding into this kind of beautiful flow.
So let's talk about the flow, the 5 modules.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So Danny summed it up essentially just talking about the importance of having conversations, of understanding how the systems are at play, how we can imagine new systems. We work through 5 modules. The first one is called Cultures of Belonging, Building Cultures of Belonging. So we, at that point, start to understand the connection between change in self and how that contributes to change within the system, and how the change that we're hoping to see is to move from othering towards belonging, efforts of belonging, practices of belonging, as inspired by the work of Dr. John Powell at the Berkeley Institute of Belonging and Othering. Did I get that right? I always inverse belonging and othering. Yes.
Yeah. You got it right.
So that's the framing essentially for the beginning of understanding, the overarching sort of thing we're working towards here is nurturing belonging. Then we move into our second module. At this point, as we talked about a few times through the program, we're rising up on the roller coaster here. Like things are getting, okay, we're diving into some bigger concepts here. So our second module is called Privilege, Power, and Trust, in which we're really looking at the individual. So during that module, we're thinking about ideologies, we're thinking about identity, we're thinking about privilege, we're thinking about how privilege provides access to power. We're thinking about the role of trust, who and how we trust. We're thinking about the unconscious ways that we perpetuate cycles of oppression. And then we also think about and explore the notion of narratives and how we label, how we're taught to label, how media encourages those labels and those narratives to be perpetuated. So that's module 2. It's a biggie. Then we move into module 3, which is our big biggie. Module 3 is called Understanding Systems. We're looking at the current dominant systems at play societally. We're thinking about the interlocking nature of these dominant systems of capitalism, patriarchy, white supremacy. We're understanding how the individual is impacted on a cellular level by the systems that are at play. And we bring in some incredible work throughout Module 2 and Module 3 from scholars who are engaged in this work. An intersectional feminist who is Dr. Nicole Charles, who brings in so many amazing
threads and gems, and just from a academics perspective and a scholarly perspective, truly fascinating.
Then we move into understanding how these systems show up in our workplace values, as I was mentioning before, whether we consciously or unconsciously, whether we consciously recognize it or not. We then shift into understanding how we need to use intersectionality as a tool for dismantling these systems and imagining new ways of being. So then we draw inspiration from systems in nature, and we start to think about the systems that are emerging societally. What is being born? What new ways of being? What new ways of governing? What new ways of educating? What new ways of developing and shifting as a society, as societies, are we beginning to see? And how could we use our imagination to actively start designing those? We then shift into module 4. At this point, our roller coaster is coming down. So we understand the core concept of cultures of belonging, what we're working towards. We understand the individual and the self in module 2. We understand the systems at play. And then in module 4 and 5, we're starting to think about what intentional active steps we can take to design new ways. Module 4 is called Building Communities of Care, which is a really grounding, very, grounding and important module for us to land in, because if we want to see social systemic change, we need to begin by showing up with care to our communities, by nurturing communities where people are cared for, where we are cared for, where there's genuine care, love, and empathy, a shared sense of responsibility, distributed power. And so that module also brings in the notion of the importance of love, and thinking about what it would look like to build economies that are beloved rather than economies that are loveless, which is inspired by the Beloved Economies framework, which we love. And
I'll give you a break. We close module 5 with moving forward with intention, and that is essentially giving folks some helpful tools and resources that they can begin to move through depending on where they find themselves on their journey. So we give or we explore the resources of pod mapping through, or is that module 4?
That's module 4.
That's module 4. No, module 5 is holistic wellness, your wellness,
Ecosystems of well-being.
And as well as the Beloved Economy's 7 pillars of transforming the ways that we work. And close off essentially with having folks think about the questions that are still emerging for them, the importance of questions in adopting a designer mindset. Before and not before. That's a close, following which we provide everybody with a kind of nice closer workbook to work through as teams for those who are joining us as teams. This is a really long recap, but 5 modules.
Yeah, there's a lot in these modules.
5 modules, and yeah, I'm excited.
What do you love about the seed?
I love that it holds the tension between the fundamental frameworks and theories and mindsets that we need to explore and dismantle and question and criticize, beginning with understanding our own selves and how we contribute to these systems, with the tension of and the hope of reimagining new ways, and the groundedness and the care that is needed to move forward, which I think these conversations need to hold. I think that constantly critiquing systems without offering alternatives is draining. I think that, having the language for ideas work and EDI work without understanding um, the importance of community and accountability is inefficient.
Mm.
So I think that we've really held those tension and married both worlds in a really succinct way that feels exhausting at first, but hopeful in the end.
Mhm.
What do you love about it?
I love that it puts, um, I feel like it really invites people to recognize where they can step in. I feel
Mhm.
like there's a real invitation for um, developing a sense of agency and developing a really clear understanding of where you land in social change work, in collective liberation work, in ideas work. Um, I I I love that there's like we're not pulling anyone. It's really about like where do you land here, and how could you self reflect in a way that's honest, that's compassionate. I love the elements in this program of embodiment, encouraging where we encourage people to take care of themselves through this process. It's not only an intellectual experience;
Mm,
it's a creative experience. It's an emotional experience. Um, I love also that um, we, I think we really trust. I feel like there's a trust for the participants and in the learners, in the way that we deliver what we deliver. We believe in people. I think that shows that it's regardless of where you're at on this journey. Like I love that metaphor that you used before about, are you a seed? Are you like a budding plant? Are you an ancestral tree? Regardless of where you're at, we trust that it's important that you're here, and we trust in your ability to critically reflect. We trust in your ability to openly listen, to actively engage, to be curious, um, to care.
mhm. What's coming up? So we are holding ourselves accountable to um, coming on live a little bit more to talk about the program. We are inviting folks to join us. So next week is week 1, exploring module 1 with whom?
You tell me who.
Lauren.
Oh, it's Lauren. Amazing. Okay.
Clearly, Erin is really deep in the program development. But
I know
next
who's
week,
speaking of this, but I don't know who's who when.
next week we're exploring identity further, and we're bringing in one of our facilitators, Lauren Russ Constant, who is just this incredibly thoughtful um, facilitator, and I had coined her, I think, on Instagram, like my identity guru. She is constantly asking herself and others to move through the exploration of identity, the importance of understanding who we are and what shaped who we are, and um, who we are becoming. So we're going to spend some time chatting about identity with her through the lens of ideas. She was part of our pilot, so I'm excited to have her and hear from her. That'll be module 1. We'll announce guests. I've said guests progressively. But we'll be back next week. We'll be back next week. I'm mindful of time because we told ourselves 30 minutes. So wrapping this up
Yeah.
now.
So it's probably something we should have said before, but if you want more information about the program,
Yes.
it's at jointheseed.online. jointheseed.online, jointheseed.online, which I will add to the description on LinkedIn. We're going to be posting a lot more stuff on Instagram as well. And
the cohort runs.
The cohort runs, right. Our first cohort. So we're launching our first cohort of the seed, our first 5 weeks is going to take place January 22nd to February 22nd. So it's coming up. If you have any interest, if you have interest for you and your team, we haven't talked about the learner profiles, but this is a program that's designed for self-funded individuals, as well as leaders in the community space, as well as people working in corporate who want to engage more deeply in these concepts. So there's a vast array of learner profiles so that we can create some really rich conversations when we're all together in community. Write us if you have any questions. And I promise I'll hold myself more accountable to checking my messages and actually responding and dealing with the online social anxiety. And I'm excited about this.
Me too. Me too. We'll see you all soon next week.
Take care.
Thank you.